Good morning or afternoon, gentlemen. We are back to a digital format because today is my birthday and I'm going to be out for that reason. Hope you guys have a good day in my absence. I've tried to put together a nice compilation of clips for you that will be well worth your time. And with that said, let's just jump into it. You know the drill. I ask some questions, and based off of the clips that you see, you respond to those questions on paper or on Google Classroom through a Google Doc. Let's jump into it. Question number one. Question number one is going to be, please tell me what is Kaprekar's constant? Question number one, what is Kaprekar's constant and how is it derived? What is Kaprekar's constant? And how do you get to that number?
There's a mysterious number known as Kaprekar's constant. It was discovered by the Indian mathematician D.R. Kaprekar in the late 1940s. Start by choosing a random 4-digit number. The only restriction is that at least 2 of the digits must be different. So for example, you couldn't choose 1111, but you could choose 1110. I'll choose the number 8273. Now we'll perform a handful of somewhat bizarre but rather simple operations. First, arrange the digits in descending order, so 8732. Then write this number in reverse, so 2378. Finally, subtract these two numbers. In this case, I get 6354. Now we're going to repeat the steps using this number. Write the digits in descending order. Then subtract the reverse of this number. This time I get 3087. As you might have guessed, we're now going to use this number to repeat the steps once again. The shuffling of digits and subtraction seem like they would lead nowhere, just a never-ending sequence of arbitrary numbers. The astounding thing is that if you do this long enough, you will always eventually hit the number 6174. If you try to keep going, you just get this number back again, forever. As long as at least 2 of the 4 digits in your initial number are different, this curious procedure will ultimately pull any 4-digit number you choose to exactly 6174.
Mr. Storgerson! Just why? Why are we learning any of this? Yeah, Mr. Storgerson, when are we ever going to use this in our real life? Ordinarily, I would say, come on, that is a terrible attitude to have. It really is. We are already at school. You're already in this context where we've scheduled classes for a teacher to teach you and for you to learn. You are contributing nothing positive by coming with contagiously negative feedback. Ordinarily, it does help to be in a positive headspace when you're coming to the classroom, to be well rested, to be ready to learn. But so much of being ready to learn is having a sense of your why. Why am I here? What am I doing? What is the point of all of this? And I admittedly struggled with that as a kid too. And I will warn you and hopefully uplift you in saying that it doesn't go away once school's over. You will ask the same questions of your job and your life, and being able to answer that question well now means that you will be able to answer that question well later. So for that reason, and for that reason alone, no, not alone, we have 2 weeks left, why not? For that reason, for the fact that we have 2 weeks left, let's lean into this. Bell ringer question number 2 is going to be based on a TikTok video I'm going to show you. Based on this TikTok video, give me 3 things. Question number 2, give me 3 things that you see as common examples of things you learn in school that seem both useless and uninteresting. Give me 3 useless, uninteresting things that everyone learns in school based on this next TikTok video.
Sir, can you please teach us something that's in real life? Yeah, like how to write a resume or to prepare for interviews. How do we pay taxes? Now I know you're kidding. We didn't even ask anything that time.
Now, every part of me wants to argue against that. The idea that just because something initially seems useless and uninteresting doesn't mean that it can't become interesting and that something being interesting isn't inherently valuable. Every part of me wants to just attack that part of this argument. But I think the more important direction I want to take you today is in elucidating, making it clear to you just how complex what your developmental stage in childhood and your teenage years and young adulthood has for you. And essentially what school is doing is trying to accomplish more than one thing. School is trying to accomplish more than one thing. Question number 3, bell ringer question number 3. Give me one other thing that this lady is insisting should be a part of education, was a part of classical education, and seems to not be valued in the public educational system nowadays.
Were you ever having a good day and then suddenly remembered that of all the standardized courses we were forced to sit through during school, of all the information that we were required to consume, none of it was ethics? Of all the courses, none of them were ethics. That learning what the mitochondria of a cell does was so essential, we had to provide that to every child in America for free. But to take an ethics course, you have to pay tuition and accrue student loans. Like the quadratic formula, essential for every American to know. But how right and wrong functions in a society and how choices can be made to prevent harm, that you have to go into depth for.
All right, we have a ways to go, but you can already see school already has these two competing goals, these two different things we could spend our time doing. One is to know history, math, and science, and the other is to know ethics. Now, why are they in contradiction? Well, they're not necessarily in contradiction. They very much can integrate as one holistic approach to understanding your life and the world around you. But on the one hand, we feel like you blipped into this world. You didn't choose to be born. You're in this universe with physics that you don't intellectually understand, with a history that you know nothing about. And you need to be able to understand how the physical world works, how the physical world got to be the way that it is, how life came to be, how we're going to live our life. That's the ethics part. And this is where you can already see with just two factors that we need to be careful here. I am just Mr. Storkerson. I am just one person. So I'm giving you a perspective here, one perspective on how this can go. But you can already see that with two factors, one person might prioritize ethics more than the academics. Another person could prioritize academics more than the ethics. And as we start to have more than two factors to consider, that means that the system is trying to accommodate a lot of different people's preferences and priorities. All right, let's move on to number 3. I'm going to give you, I'm going to move on to number 4, and I'm going to give you a third priority that could be considered, and that is the workplace. So question number 4, bell ringer question number 4 is going to be, why do we not have lumberjacks anymore? Now, based on the next video, why do we not have lumberjacks anymore? All right, so we're sitting with a system of education, right? We see that you are born into a universe, you are born into society, and we think you should know intellectually how that universe and that society works. Fair enough, so you take all these classes. Second thing that should also be important, you are a human being, you interact with other people, you should know how to live your life, what's important to you, and how you should treat other people. It's the ethical piece, and we try our best to really lead you in the way that you should go. And you may not be sensitive to it now, but your teachers truly are doing a magnificent job in really guiding you in how you should move forward, proceeding not just with your coursework, but also with your life. And you can really see that if you contrast it with how your peers tend to lead you. Peer pressure versus parental and teacher pressure is a night and day difference. The third factor is preparing you for the workforce, but you quickly realize that this is going to splinter into an even more complex situation very quickly. Well, let's go over it together. Bell ringer question number 5, based on this next very short clip. Question number 5, which 2 things do you think matter in choosing your job? There are more, but based on this clip, which 2 things are often on the forefront of people's minds when choosing their job? All right, so what are we looking at here? We need to understand the universe and society that we're born in. Math, science, history. We need to understand how to be a good person, ethics. We need to be able to choose a job that makes a lot of money, and we need to be able to choose a job that doesn't make us sad and stressed, right? So we already have at least 4 factors of things that we could try to prepare ourselves for that the educational system is trying to accommodate. It's made extra complex by the fact that most career paths are not like the traditional ones that you may think of when you think of a job. Most people nowadays switch jobs every 2 to 4 years, and they chain those jobs together in what will move them upward in some type of career path. But they're not doing one job their whole life. That makes it extra hard to prepare. With that said, you need to start developing a plan, not necessarily a specific plan that you're going to follow. I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and my life will turn out exactly as I planned. But what you need to develop through your life experience in school and in early adulthood is an understanding of the principles you're going to follow, the type of algorithms you'll run for your decision making. Now, this is where I'm going to start to give a little bit more of my own personal preferences, my own personal values, and I will also try to temper that, to even it out with the fact and the main principle that everyone is different.
Let me ruin your day. 50 is not middle age, approximately 35 to 40 is. The average life expectancy for an average person is between 70 to 80 years. Very few people live to be 100. All of us are structured to believe 50 is middle age, because 50 is half of 100 and that half makes sense. But in reality, if you are in your 30s, you are right at the tip or in the middle age. This is considering you actually live past 70. If you take into context unforeseen passing like a car crash or numerous other things, that number is significantly lower. Working till you are 65 to retire is one of the biggest scams on the planet, and those who realize gets out before anyone else. Life is shorter than you think, so stop putting off things for later. Going on that trip later, asking that person out later, moving to a new country later. Welcome to reality. Enjoy your stay.
So I just got back from an interview for a job that pays like less than half what I'm used to making. The guy took one look at my resume and told me that he was scared to hire me because the job I was interviewing for really didn't match up with the other jobs on my resume. Just for some context, my resume includes titles like Director of Operations and Director of Outside Sales. But what I told him is that ever since losing my corporate job in 2020 and going through the death of my dad, I've really had to reevaluate not only what success looks like for me in my professional life, but how reaching that success affects the rest of my life. Both corporate jobs that I've worked me to the bone. I've pulled everything from a 15-hour shift to a 37-hour shift. I was harassed, I was overworked, and I even ended up having to take my first employer to the labor board. Of course, those are all stories in themselves. But the important thing is that 2 years after leaving the high-pressure 9-to-5 work environment, and pulling myself away from the rise and grind mentality. I'm starting to realize that success no longer looks the way that it used to for me. So later in the conversation, when he asked me what my big, audacious goals are for the next little while, I told him that my goal was just to find peace. Because all the way from my bodybuilding days to my weightlifting days, I've been really good at all or nothing. And I've been really good at defining success by how much I could prove to others. But now I want to start defining success by how well balanced my life is, and by the quality of things that I spend my time on. So yeah, this job isn't going to pay me a ton of money, but it does allow me the time and the headspace to come home every day and work on my writing. It doesn't drain me emotionally or mentally, and my work isn't going to spill over into the evenings. And although this has been one of the hardest areas of my life to reprogram my mentality towards, it's been super worth it. So I just want to encourage you that if you are taking a step back in your career because it's what's best for you mentally, or emotionally, or physically, or just better for you in general, it's okay. It doesn't make you any less of a person than you were when you were working the 9-to-5 corporate job and chasing success. It's good to have goals and it's good to be dedicated, but this rise and grind culture is so toxic because you are sacrificing your personal well-being for a future that may not even happen, and to prove things that you don't need to prove. Start defining success in healthy ways in your life.
Start defining success in healthy ways in your life. Start defining success in healthy ways in your life is great advice because it forces you to realize that you choose what success is to you, that there are so many metrics to happiness, that there are so many metrics to finances, and you shouldn't be using any one. You find the composite that works for you. Here's one recommendation of how you could define your own success. Question number 6. So bell ringer question number 6. Based on this next clip, or based on this poem, what can you surmise he's saying makes him rich? Question number 6. What is this guy saying makes him rich?
Tell me that you're extremely wealthy without telling me that you're extremely wealthy.
Well, I don't like to brag, but since you asked. This is my office. That is my throne. This hammock is my living room. The forest is my home. The kitchen's set up over there, and that's my little light. Once the sun has had its fun, I sleep in here at night. My handcrafted wooden library has books to pass the time. And this is my surround sound. It's quality, sublime. It's not the biggest house on earth, but it gets me by just fine. If you've got health, then you've got wealth. I love this life of mine.
This is going to seem like a tangent, but bear with me for just a second. Bell ringer question number 7. Bell ringer question number 7. What determines your handedness? What determines whether you're right or left-handed? Bell ringer question number 7.
And despite what many may think, handedness is not a choice. It can be predicted even before birth, based on the fetus's position in the womb. So if handedness is inborn, does that mean it's genetic? Well, yes and no. Identical twins who have the same genes can have different dominant hands. In fact, this happens as often as it does with any other sibling pair. But the chances of being right or left-handed are determined by the handedness of your parents in surprisingly consistent ratios.
All right, you may not have perspective on this, but this is actually really weird to have the exact same genes and still have some kind of biological dice roll in how you become as a person with something as influential in your life like whether you use your right hand or your left hand. The question then is, for this specifically, bell ringer question number 8, what is the range? What is the dice roll for your chances of being left-handed? Bell ringer question number 8, what is the range? Give me 2 numbers. What is the range that you are likely to be left-handed?
If your father was left-handed but your mother was right-handed, you have a 17% chance of being born left-handed, while 2 righties will have a left-handed child only 10% of the time. Handedness seems to be determined by a roll of the dice, but the odds are set by your genes. All of this implies there's a reason that evolution has produced this small proportion of lefties and maintained it over the course of millennia. And while there have been several theories attempting to explain why handedness exists in the first place, or why most people are right-handed,
Bell ringer question number 8. Continuing this, what is that theory? What is the main working theory right now in terms of why we even have left-handed people at all? Or why we aren't 50-50? Why does left-handedness only exist in a small portion of the population? What benefit does that have? Bell ringer question number 8, what is the theory behind this? Please, please, please elaborate on this one. Give me at least 3 sentences.
a recent mathematical model suggests that the actual ratio reflects a balance between competitive and cooperative pressures on human evolution. The benefits of being left-handed are clearest in activities involving an opponent, like combat or competitive sports. For example, about 50% of top hitters in baseball have been left-handed. Why? Think of it as a surprise advantage. Because lefties are a minority to begin with, both right-handed and left-handed competitors will spend most of their time encountering and practicing against righties. So when the two face each other, the left-hander will be better prepared against this right-handed opponent, while the righty will be thrown off. This fighting hypothesis, where an imbalance in the population results in an advantage for left-handed fighters or athletes, is an example of negative frequency-dependent selection. But according to the principles of evolution, groups that have a relative advantage tend to grow until that advantage disappears. If people were only fighting and competing throughout human evolution, natural selection would lead to more lefties being the ones that made it, until there were so many of them that it was no longer a rare asset. So in a purely competitive world, 50% of the population would be left-handed. But human evolution has been shaped by cooperation as well as competition, and cooperative pressure pushes handedness distribution in the opposite direction. In golf, where performance doesn't depend on the opponent, only 4% of top players are left-handed, an example of the wider phenomenon of tool sharing. Just as young potential golfers can more easily find a set of right-handed clubs, many of the important instruments that have shaped society were designed for the right-handed majority.
All right, connection time, here we go. So you saw that only about 4% of golfers were left-handed, but that you have a lot of left-handed people. I mean, considering there aren't that many left-handed people, there are a lot of left-handed people in sports. So that means that we design things like golf clubs, like school, for the majority. I'm being careful with my word choice there. We don't design it for normal people, we design it for the majority. The key idea here is just like left-handed people are normal, they're just not the majority. Most people are right-handed, but it's very normal to be left-handed. About 10 to 25% of kids are going to be left-handed. That means systems are usually going to be designed for the majority. The golf clubs are going to be designed for the right-handed players. School is going to be designed for those who are considered neurotypical, normal, the majority. And it's very normal for people's minds to work in different ways. It's very normal for people to like different hobbies. It's very normal for people to like certain jobs or hate certain jobs. And that means that school can't do a good job at helping you find what works for you, because you are very complex and you are very different than this other very complex person. I'm gonna make a jump here though. The jump is going to be that I do recommend you still learn, regardless of where you are on normal, to work within systems. Just find a system that works for you. Here's an example of a system. Bell ringer question number 10. Bell ringer question number 10. Explain how this system, Cirque du Soleil, works. Bell ringer question number 10. Explain how this system, a very unconventional system, working for a circus, works.
Here are some fun facts about touring with Cirque du Soleil. We get our heads scanned so they have our head measurements on file for wigs and headpieces. If we get injured, we're still paid. We love to party, and Cirque hosts a lot of events for us. We are taught how to do our makeup step by step. We eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner for free, and our cooks are amazing. Like, so amazing. We are allowed 4 suitcases each. We stay in hotels or Airbnbs, paid for by the company. We perform 8 to 10 shows per week, and we don't know what skills we're going to be doing that day until 30 minutes before the show. There's a lineup, and we rotate tricks so we're not doing the same thing every day. It's basically a breakdown of the show on paper.
So everyone's different, right? So we have this situation where school is doable for a lot of people. They can come, they can follow the routine, and it's very easy and natural for them to do what they're told, to get their assignments done. And then you get others for whom it's remarkably difficult, and for a variety of reasons. So the opposite of neurotypical would be neurodivergent. And I've mentioned ADHD as one of the main types of being neurodivergent in the past. That's one example of a type of normal. It's very normal to have ADHD, just like it's normal to be left-handed. It's not the way most people are, but there's nothing wrong with you. That's just a way to be human. Some people are like that. And it's a bummer when a system is designed in a way that doesn't really fit how you are. And it can make you feel like there's something wrong with you because life is hard when you have to conform to this system. So, cycling back and moving forward here. Bell ringer question number 11. Bell ringer question number 11 is getting at this idea of why it's helpful to work with the system, regardless of how easy it is. Maybe even more so if it's difficult. Meaning that school might be more important for you if school is hard for you. Bell ringer question number 11. The question itself is, rephrase this guy's point. He's making a point about art. Rephrase this artist's point about the value of his work.
We need to talk about this. Anytime you buy something from an artist, you're not just paying for the supplies and the product. You're paying for the years and experiments that it took to master that craft. And most importantly, you're paying for their time and their talent. It takes a lot of time to do this. If I wanted to make $50 for 6 hours of work, I would have worked at McDonald's, and the work would be a lot easier.
Mr. Storgerson. I got a bell ringer question for you. Let's do bell ringer question number 12. Bell ringer question number 12. What is your point, Mr. Storgerson? What is Mr. Storgerson's point? Tell us in 3 sentences or less. We need to tell you in 3 sentences or less what you're going to take way more than 3 sentences to say. What is your main point? So we have this guy, right? An artist. He makes ridiculously intricate and elegant designs that go along fandom-based themes. It's phenomenal, right? This guy should make an insane amount of money for what he does, but we're used to paying so little. Now, there is that whole, remember, math, history, science thing. There is a whole history and process behind how economics work with supply and demand, and those hold explanatory power for why we won't pay hundreds of dollars for this really cool piece of art that did take somebody hours, and we think they should get paid hundreds of dollars for something that took them hours and years of practice. So how does McDonald's take people and give them a job that they don't really have to prepare for? Right? You can learn to do the tasks at McDonald's in less than 2 weeks. and they can pay you more than being able to make that art. That is a very simple illustration that I want to pass on to you for how a system, this large system, systems can be messed up, guys. No adult is denying that. There are plenty of things in the world that just frustrate us, and we wonder, why is it like that? And maybe we know, maybe we don't. Either way, it's frustrating, and we wish it wasn't like that. And ultimately, we all just want to make the world a better place. And what I'm encouraging you here is that part of your life plan, your type of algorithm that you apply for your decision making in the future, should consider that it's not always best to go it alone. It's a very special type of person with an entrepreneurial mind. And even then, you're rolling dice. That, do you want to roll 1 out of 100 dice with your happiness? For most people, I mean, when it goes well, cool. But for most people, the answer is no. And a system gives you that. An established system, with all its flaws, gives you the ability to go have no skill and make more than somebody who can make elegant, intricate art that everybody loves. Which means that you should pursue some skill or knowledge subset or skill set, something that works for you and how your mind ticks. You figure out how your mind ticks, which things you find boring, which things you find interesting, which things stress you out, which things just slough over you and you don't care, but they stress other people out a lot. What type of situations work with you, and then keep that as what you get to choose from. And try to work within a system that gives that to you. Now, obviously, as a teacher, I'm kind of nudging you to be like, hey, the way society is designed is that doing very well in school gives you those opportunities, that regardless of how your mind works, you can enter systems later if you have good grades, because people trust that you're solid. So why do we do all of this? Many answers. But one of the main reasons is that we know that you can do things whether you feel like it or not, and you will do them well. And when you already know how to do them well, you'll do them with passion as well. Some more things to come here, but let's stop that there and move on to some just general small tidbit life advice that you don't really get in school or anywhere, so you might as well get it now while we're here.
You are watching a master at work.
This is the moment, tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over, so we put our hands up like a
Thunder breathing, 7th technique. Oh, I love it. It's good. Just let's not take my word for it on all of this. Bell ringer question number 13. Bell ringer question number 13. I want 5 pieces of advice to be written down here. Bell ringer question number 13. I'm giving you a clip from Reddit. Not normally the best harbinger of wisdom for you, but crowdsourcing for you. Don't just take my word for it. The internet has spoken. Write down 5 of these pieces of life advice.
What's that one thing people in their 20s should definitely do before turning 30? Start doing mobility exercises and stretching. If you smoke cigarettes, quit. It's all shits and giggles when you're in your 20s, but it'll catch up to you way quicker than you think. If you quit now, your body still has time to heal much of the damage that has been done to it. Brush your damn teeth. Realize that your friend group from your early 20s will most likely look completely different by your later 20s and into your 30s, and that's okay. Other than investing, get your physical and mental health in order. Unlearn the life plan mindset. Sometimes, things change. You won't like your career that you majored in later like you do now. Or maybe you already started seeing the cons. But that's okay. Starting over isn't a bad thing. Life isn't a race. Don't compare your life to your cousin Johnny or your cousin Lily. They're already struggling with their parents' expectations. Also, if you can, move away from your parents. You'll be surprised by how much parents can influence their children's lives and their choices. If you're a guy who suspects you might go bald early because of genetics, try out some weird hairstyles. Well, if it works in your line of work. Get a faux hawk, cut some bangs like it's 70s, grow it out, braid it. You only have one head of hair, and when it's gone, it's gone. Start investing money. Add money to your retirement account. Even if it's $10, $100, $27.50. Whatever it is, sock away a bit of money. Easiest way is to put it in an index fund. A mutual fund that follows some stock index like the S&P 500. When I was 22 or so, my friend's brother-in-law got a job at an investment company and so naturally trolled all my friends' friends for customers, including myself. Just to get him to stop talking, I agreed to invest in his funds a few hundred a month. After a few years, I stopped putting money into that fund. 30 years later, I took a look at that account, which I didn't add to, but just let sit around, and it had $250,000 in it, which I can't touch until retirement or else in current tax.
All right, I'm back. I'm sorry. Bell ringer question numbers 14, 15, and 16. The next 3 bell ringer questions are all going to be a rendition of the same question. I'm going to show you 3 data sets. One is for low-income households in the United States, one is for middle-income households in the United States, and the other is for high-income households in the United States. So you're looking at 3 income brackets and what they spend their money on each year. So, bell ringer question number 14. Tell me 3 of the highest categories. So look at all of the numbers, that's how much people spend each year, and write down the 3 categories with the biggest numbers for bell ringer question number 14. What do low-income households in the United States spend the most money on? Bell ringer question number 15 is going to be, look at the data set for middle income households. What are the 3 categories that have the highest spending in the middle income category? Write those 3 categories down that have the 3 highest numbers in this data set. Bell ringer question number 16. Bell ringer question number 16, please tell me the 4, not 3. Please tell me the top 4 categories that the wealthy households in the United States spend money on. Please tell me the top 4 categories that upper income households spend money on each year in the United States. Bell ringer question number 17 is going to be, please just write down the 3 pieces of advice that I'm about to give you. Write down these 3 pieces of advice for bell ringer question number 17. You noticed in those 3 data sets that there were 3 categories that just kept coming up. Doesn't matter whether you're low income, middle income, or upper income in the US. People spend most of their money on housing, transportation, and food. Pretty much in that order until you get to the upper income, and then you just spend a bunch of money on other things. Now, I would encourage you guys to be able to spend money on other things. That other category is going to be very different for everybody, but it helps, okay? So, housing. Piece of advice for housing, just get comfortable living with roommates. You have no idea how much this will add to your happiness until you really run with it. Whether you're living with your parents, or you're living with some friends, you're living with a significant other like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, it is all about saving several $100s. And in this case, time is money. You would have to spend hours doing a job that you might not like to get those hundreds of dollars. So yes, there can be some inconveniences with roommates. I've managed 70 roommates as a job before. I know that people can fight and argue about little minuscule things, but learn to avoid conflict. Learn to de-escalate conflict. Those are very good life skills that you're getting for negative, like you're basically getting paid by saving money to build those life skills. And then ultimately, loneliness, isolation, depression, these are common issues people have in adulthood. And I mean, maybe if you just need your own space, if you find that it is worth the hundreds of dollars to you to just be set apart, go for it. But for the overwhelming majority of you, get used to living with roommates because it saves tons of money and it keeps you very emotionally grounded from the regular social interaction. All right. Housing, transportation, food. That would mean that the second piece of advice has to do with transportation. The best way to do this, ride a bike and use public transit if you can. I know that's not a thing in Louisville, but if you move somewhere, prioritize not needing a car. And if you do need a car, prioritize having one that is affordable. Don't put tens of thousands of dollars into a depreciating asset when that can literally be used as a down payment for a home. Housing, transportation, food. Third and final thing is going to be food. Gentlemen, learn to cook. You save so much money. It tastes better. It can be healthier if you're making the right choices. Just cook more often. Don't eat out. Avoid it. Avoid eating out. Every time you eat out, that's an opportunity for you to have gotten better at cooking. That's more money you spent to not improve as a person. And that money could have been spent and put toward investments or other things that would, yes, food is good, probably made you happier than that food. We will take bell ringer question number 18 from one of the students. Mr. Storgerson, can I go to the bathroom? I'm in Cherokee Park, so you do whatever you want, I guess. But hey, did you know, fun fact,
always go to the bathroom when you have a chance.
Nope, don't do that. Pelvic floor physical therapist here, so I work with a lot of people with overactive bladder, stress incontinence, urge incontinence, the whole 9 yards. And here's why you shouldn't go just in case. Your bladder basically has 3 levels of sensation of filling. So this first one is just an awareness level that tells you that there's some urine in the bladder. The second one is actually the one that tells you to make a plan to use the toilet. And then the third one is kind of the panic button that says, get me there right now, I'm about to overflow. If we're going just in case, it means we're going somewhere in here. So before we actually get an urge to use the toilet. And so if we're doing this all the time, like this creator suggests that we should, then our bladder starts getting these data points as, oh, okay, well, maybe we should be sending this signal a little sooner. So let's shift this line down. And so now we're going to start getting that urge to go a lot sooner than before. Over time, this compresses those 3 levels together. And so the difference between feeling like there's some urine in your bladder and feeling that panic button like you're about to pee your pants is going to happen in a much shorter amount of time. So actually avoid the just in case unless you're going to be in the car for longer than an hour, once before bed or before or after sex.
Bell ringer question number 19, also from one of the students. Let's hear it. Mr. Storgerson, I'm tired. It's actually very common for teenagers to struggle getting enough sleep because your circadian rhythms, when your body naturally feels awake and like it's time to go to bed, is pushed forward about 3 hours. So you're always wanting to wake up late and sleep late. Yeah, so you probably don't have enough sleep. You should probably take a nap. Unfortunately, you're usually at school. Solution. It turns out that if you're sleeping for more than 20 minutes, you'll usually wake up feeling groggy, where you're really lethargic and you're just maybe have a headache. You feel like you have nothing left in you. Just, wow, that made things worse. I'm more tired now. So you could wake up feeling more tired. You could wake up feeling groggy if you sleep for more than 20 minutes. So the question is, how little sleep do you need to actually help? Research shows that as little as 6 minutes can put you into a relaxed state that actually will increase how well you do on various tests, showing that you are indeed resting and improving. Again, 6 minutes. In fact,
here's what you do when you're super tired, but you only have 8 minutes. Get on the floor. And put your feet up on your bed like this, or on something high, a couch, anything. Set a timer for 8 minutes and take the best nap of your life. It's a Navy SEAL trick and it works. Now follow me.
Mr. Storgerson. How are you so comfortable just expressing your thoughts and ideas to other people? Said no one in the world ever! Alright, not the friendliest way of presenting it, but I'm gonna take it seriously. Bell ringer question number 20. Based on this next video, what is my recommendation for you in terms of improving how you communicate with other people?
Simply record a 5-minute video of yourself, and you need to speak improvised. The first time you review it, turn the sound all the way up, press play, turn your phone down. Just listen. Audit the auditory component of your voice, known as your vocal image. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Second, grab the phone, turn the sound off, press play, make sure it's on mute, just look at yourself. How's your body language? What's your facial expressions like? Do a visual audit of your visual image. Third component, get the video transcribed. Red highlighter, bring all your non-words and filler words to the forefront of your mind. That's robbing you of clarity every time you talk. You basically have a mirror in front of you. It's a very powerful routine.
All right, hopefully you're catching on to this theme. The theme of needing to work not just smarter, but also harder. Working smarter and harder if you want to get good at anything. And if you care about anything, you naturally want to get good at some things. And if you want to have more time to be able to get good at those things, you also have to get good at other things. Try to work smarter and harder at everything you do. Sometimes, though, you just can't get the motivation. And that is where having good role models and having good company around you can help. Bell ringer question 21. There's actually a business in Japan that has taken that kind of peer pressure and used it in a business model. So bell ringer question 21. Tell me about this business in Japan that helps creatives stay motivated.
This cafe in Japan, you can actually pay someone to hound you to get your work done. And the catch is, you can't leave until you finish. It's known as the Manuscript Writing Cafe. It has 10 seats and is mainly meant for writers, editors, manga artists, and anyone trying to make a tight deadline. Now here's the rules. Once you enter, you are handed a slip where you write down your name, writing goals, and the time you need to finish. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You can choose between how you want to be held accountable on a scale of mild, normal, or hard, kind of like hot sauce. Mild gets you a verbal check-in only when you pay at the counter. Normal gets you a progress check by the hour. And now for possibly the most nerve-wracking of them all, if you choose hard, you will have a staff member stand behind you every so often as you continue to work on meeting your deadline, letting the pressure loom quite literally. The cafe was inspired by a famous Japanese children's story called The Restaurant of Many Orders. You're charged a very small fee by the hour and have unlimited access to self-serve coffee, tea, complete with fast Wi-Fi and plug-in jacks. We love those plug-in jacks. After going viral on social media, some of the rules of this fascinating concept have people feeling a bit tense at trying it out, even a bit scared. But the owner insists that the purpose of this cafe is to be there for a little extra support, rather than make them fearful, and is proud he can help be a patron for the creative work of customers. He says he's already seen major success, with customers being able to get assignments done in an hour that otherwise might take them 3 hours.
All right, there you go. 21 questions. A little bit longer than usual, a lot longer than usual. So my apologies, we'll span this out over 2 days instead of the typical one. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully this was beneficial. If you didn't like it, well, that's why we don't bother telling you about this in school. If you did like it, sorry, you don't get more of it in school. I am off now to enjoy the rest of my birthday. Thank you for watching. Love you guys. Hope you continue to grow and enjoy everything about your life over summer.